Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us from. Welcome to the Talent Plug podcast. I'm your host, Francis Malumba. So, on this week's episode, we explore a profession that is very, very interesting to me. It is one that a lot of individuals wants to get into. A lot of people that are in that profession got it very, very jealously and understandably so. So, in this episode, we are exploring the field of law. And to help us discuss this specific field, I've got a very seasoned lawyer who's joining us. Her name is Mutumwa Lubasi Muyangana. Mutumwa, welcome to the Talent Plug podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Francis. It's a great opportunity.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting to speak into law because there are different perceptions about the profession. There are different perceptions about lawyers and what they do. But maybe even before we get into that discussion, just tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. So, I think my journey has been the most interesting because I'm not what you call a traditional lawyer.
Right.
And I love to say that it's something I'm very proud of. The day I decided to be a lawyer, it's a very, very funny, probably very cliche story.
Right.
I was very young. I remember we were home watching Boston Legal. Well,
Yeah.
the adults were watching. I was just like a fly on the wall in the
Right.
room. And I remember just seeing William Shatner and all of the guys,
Yeah.
in the courtroom,
Right.
having the banter and the exchange. Just seemed so glamorous and so cool.
Right.
And from that day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I had in my mind growing up. So my whole education, everything I did, my mind was set.
Right.
I tried to do other things, they didn't work out.
Yeah.
So my mind was set that I would be a lawyer. So I spent, I think, most of my junior and senior year
Right.
in the UK, where I did my high school. And after that, I went to uni in Sheffield and I got my LLB business law. It's very specific.
Right.
So it focused more on contract law, employment law,
Right.
accounting, finance, very business focused law degree. That's what I got. And when I decided, anyway, we had a deal with my parents.
Right.
I wanted to come back to Zambia and just try and practice, just to try it.
Right.
Not that my mind was set on it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to commit my life to a career in law. I really
Right.
wasn't. I do think I was quite young. I was 20, 21.
Right.
So I don't think that I should have been making those decisions yet. So what I told them was, let's make a deal. I want to go to Zambia. I want to try and see if I can practice and see how much I like law.
Right.
And then from there, I can make a decision on what I want to do. My mother made a deal with me and said, okay, you can go, but you have to do your master's first. So I did a master's in human resource management.
Right.
I wanted to do it in employment law, but at the time, I wanted to stay home with my parents and still do my master's. And the closest uni that was there to my home only didn't have a law master's that I wanted. So I
Right.
ended up doing human resources because
Right.
I felt like it was close enough.
Right.
And it would still go well with my law degree. So I did that. And then I think immediately after that, I came to Zambia and I went to Ziali, which is a whole different thing.
Right.
And, I was fortunate enough, I passed Ziali. And, while I was at Ziali, like 3 months before we wrote our final exams, I was fortunate enough, I was headhunted by an organization called Zona, and they offered me a job in human resources.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's how I started my career. I didn't start out in the field of law.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I only transitioned a bit later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's pretty much about me.
Interesting. So, speaking about that transition, so obviously your undergrad was a degree in law, and then you did a master's in HR. So, weren't there any opportunities for you to further your profession in HR? Did you feel that that space was good enough for you?
I did. I think there were plenty of opportunities. Probably what ruined it for me was that I started out, the first role I was given was called People Innovation Lead.
Right.
which is basically like talent development.
Right.
I was looking after the learning, formal, informal, just culture,
Right.
ensuring this, that's really what I was doing. And it was fun. It was the most fun job I ever had.
Right.
But then there were other people who were doing talent management, recruitment, and admin. They all left.
Right.
And then I was forced and thrust into all those
Right.
responsibilities.
Right.
And then I just had one person supporting me, like a direct report. And I liked it for a while, but it's not where my passion was. I did feel like I could see a career where I was already a country head of human resources. From
Right.
there, I would need to go into another
Right.
organization
Right. Right.
or probably regional. You understand? That's where my mind was. And I just wasn't passionate enough to pursue that.
Right.
So,
Is it because it was overwhelming at that point? Did the, I'm going to call it hate, did the hate come from the fact that, there was only one person supporting you and maybe it became a little bit overwhelming and you just thought, look, I think this is it for me? Did it come from there?
I think there was an aspect of, there was an aspect of it's routine work.
Right.
It's
Right.
I'm always doing the same thing every single day, and it just became monotonous for me. It
Right.
stopped being challenging, and I felt that I've studied too much. I've prepared
Is that a
myself
nice
too
way of saying
much.
it became boring?
I'm trying to be polite. I'm trying to be as polite
Yeah.
as I can be, because you
Yeah.
never know what if I want to go back. But and then some recruiter will say, "No, but you said HR is boring, so why do you want to do it?"
Right. Right.
But yeah, it did. It wasn't as challenging for me, and I felt like, look, I am going to become a lawyer. Let
Right.
me try and see if I can get experience in this field instead, and
Right.
see how far that takes me.
Yeah. And I know it's definitely not wasted experience, especially that there's a huge component of law in HR as well, particularly what you studied at your master's level. So I'm sure you're a very, very critical individual in different sectors of your profession, because I'm sure you're now able to provide consultancy services in terms of the HR function and how they can apply themselves in that space.
Yeah.
My next question really is to try and understand from somebody who's probably just getting out of high school, or somebody who wants to get into the field of law, what kind of skills or attributes should one have to be able to get in the profession?
So I would say that I think where you get your education actually really matters. And
Right.
I'm saying that because the way ours was structured, if you're applying to go to uni to say you're going to study law, you're going to study medicine,
Right.
when you're doing your A levels, they want you to do the hard subjects.
Right.
They want to see history, they want
Yeah.
to see science, they want the hard subjects when you're choosing your A levels for you to get into the good universities.
Right.
And so I know here the structure is very different, because I think, for instance, you just go to school and then you go to uni, right?
Right.
As long as you get your grades.
Yes.
But it doesn't matter which grades are the highest here. That's the difference. For
Right.
us, when I was doing it, it really mattered.
Right.
You needed like a B or an A in history. You needed like a B or an A in geography, and
Right.
really hard subjects like biology and physics and chemistry. And so those who are studying here are very fortunate.
Right.
All you need to do is have good grades, because that's just that's like it puts you at a zero. It doesn't
Right.
put you ahead of anyone. It just puts you at a zero, so that when you start now, at least your mind and your mental capacity is prepared for the challenge of law school, because it's not the easiest thing. And I'm one of those people who believes law school shouldn't be easy.
Right.
We want a profession that is full of smart people and people who understand what a privilege it is to be in the profession.
Right.
It's a prestigious profession, as
Definitely
they call it.
agree. Yeah.
We definitely want people who are very clever and will
Right.
be a good representation. So I think just be the smartest, most well-read person you can be. Get interested in reading,
Right.
because that's all you are going to do. That's all your life is going to be about.
Right.
And yeah, so just be very smart, be very well read, and get interested in things beyond beyond what's around you. Get interested in things in the world, because right now those things influence policies, how laws are made.
Right.
It's very, very good. And you have to open up your mind to what is possible once you even attain the degree. Because a lot of the young people always think, okay, I'm going to go to law, I'm going to go to uni, I'll do law. After that, I'll go to Ziali, I'll get a job, and I'll be very rich.
Right.
I'll probably be working in a law firm. But I promise you, it's not that straightforward. Yeah.
Interesting. So you talked about how you studied for a business law degree. I'd like to understand what other opportunities are there under law, like for somebody who wants to understand like the full scope of law. Like, can you just break it down for us so that individuals who want to venture in this space can know how to apply themselves?
I'll start by saying that, have you noticed that in America, most politicians are lawyers? Most journalists are lawyers.
Right.
Um, Michelle Obama, Obama himself, Hillary Clinton,
Yeah.
and all those people. Even the news anchors on Fox News,
Yeah.
CNN, most of those people are lawyers.
Right.
And I love to use that example because I think traditionally here in Zambia, we think if I study law, the only thing I can do is to be a lawyer.
Right.
But I've never subscribed to that, and probably that's why my career has gone in the way that it has.
Right.
I've always just thought the law degree itself and the qualification to be an advocate is just a foundation.
Right.
After that, I get to choose what I can be. I'll
Right.
tell you what's possible. You definitely can go into traditional law practice.
Right.
You go into your law firms and do litigation and corporate advisory. That's usually what they do, conveyancing and doing all these different transactions, arbitration.
Right.
But there is also another path that you can take, which is you can go, I guess they call it corporate. And sometimes that you end up in different fields. There's
Right.
mining, there's telecoms, there's banking, there's so many different industries that you can end up in corporate.
Right.
And I think I'm a little bit biased because I pretty much started my career in corporate. I mentioned earlier that I went in as people innovation support, and then I transitioned into country head of human resource. After that, I got an opportunity to then transition into country head of compliance.
Right.
So I was basically doing the regulatory compliance, managing the licenses and things like that. And what that did is that it exposed me to fintech. And so it was just starting out those days.
Right.
I sort of became an expert at fintech and managing those key stakeholder relationships, managing the regulators, internal compliance policies and things
Right.
like that. So
Right.
because I became a specialist and there were very few of those around, it means most of the jobs you see around, I can probably do it.
Right.
It's
Right.
now my choice whether that's a job that I want or not. That's the good thing with specializing early. However, when you're a lawyer, sometimes people want to end up being a judge.
Right.
And you want to have practice. I think you want to have practice if you are going to go into that path. It's
Right.
very good for you because then you will have the experience and you also have the know-how of how litigation in itself works, because that's where you will end up. There's so many things that you can do. You don't even become a judge until I think it's 15 years or something like that. I'm not sure. But so you can choose to do so many things. You can even move away from the industry altogether. You can go in human resources. I know a couple of lawyer friends that are literally country heads of human resource.
Right,
They're
right.
directors, but their profession is that they're a lawyer.
Right.
I think as a lawyer, you are definitely in the best position to do multiple jobs.
Right.
You're a learned person. You are well read. You can articulate yourself very well. The opportunities are endless. We shouldn't just limit ourselves. A lot of young people always think lawyer. I study law, I go to CLE, and I go to court.
Right.
There's so much more that you can do. That's why I use the example of look at all the politicians in America.
Right,
Most
right.
of them are lawyers.
Yeah.
If you look at their careers, they barely practiced law. They did other things and then ended up where they were. And I think that's how our minds need to be open.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Amazing. So, when I hear you speaking about how you can actually transition from one segment within law itself to doing something else. I'm kind of like intrigued to find out what the progression route is for somebody who studies law. So my question is this: you get your degree, you probably get your master's in whatever field you want to get in. Then what? Would you also, and my question is coming from the fact that I've noticed there are individuals who go to Ziali and there are individuals who don't. So maybe for a lay person, just try and make us understand the distinction and why other people go that route while others don't.
So I'll start by saying this. I know there's a tendency, especially here in Zambia, when someone is just at UNZA or at UNILA, so whatever university, and they call each other cancel, cancel.
Yeah.
You are not cancel, my friend. You
Break
have
it
not
down,
gone. No,
please,
no, 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 no.
please, please break it down
If
for
you
us.
haven't been to Ziari and you have not passed, calm
Yeah,
down.
you come on.
You are not cancel. So I think there's definitely a prestige that comes from when you study law. You just have a law degree. That's
Right.
all you have.
Right.
However, when you go to Ziali, you pass, then you get called to the bar.
Right.
Then you are an advocate. An advocate.
I understand what that means, but please, for a layperson, please just break it down. Like, what does being called to the bar mean?
So you know, in every single country,
Yeah.
right? All the countries, most countries, anyway, I think all of them, you have what you call the bar exam. The bar exam is what you write to qualify you to become a lawyer.
Right.
Like I said, just because you've studied law doesn't make you a lawyer.
Right.
And like I said, there's a lot of people who go around saying cancel, cancel.
Right.
But you haven't taken the bar. The purpose of us going to Ziali is to have an opportunity to take the bar.
Right.
Once you pass that bar exam, and then you can get called to the bar.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you get called to the bar, then you now, I can say you have the right to go to court and represent someone.
Got you.
It
Got
gives you certain rights and privileges.
Right.
Yes. Not that you just have a degree and you're out here. I
Yes.
find that to be so offensive.
Yeah.
I find it to
I
be
hear that quite a lot.
so frustrating.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that goes into passing the bar.
Right.
There's so much effort that has to go into it. And you learn a lot. You know, it's not just an exam.
Right.
You learn a lot about the profession. You learn a lot about the people that came before you and what you're getting yourself into and the responsibility and the level of integrity it requires. So,
Right.
yeah, it's something that everyone should take seriously.
Right,
So
right.
even when people go around, even people that are not lawyers, you know, it's not just the law students. Even people that are not lawyers, just because someone is at, you know,
Right.
then they call them cancel. I'll trust. I roll my
You
eyes. I'm just
cringe. You're like, come on, guys.
I roll my eyes like, come
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
We just spent don't know how many years of our lives, you know, but never mind.
Yeah, I hear you. You brought about the aspect of Ziali and passing those bar exams, which is a very interesting topic in the social setting, because you know Ziali has this notorious perception that you know the exams that they administer are very difficult to pass, and you know there's just some there are a lot of question marks about those exams and why very few individuals pass those exams. Can you just speak into that?
It's a tough time. It's a tough time, even in my time, which is not very long ago. The way I said it, it sounds like it was many years
Yeah.
ago. It wasn't. So it's a very intense. I think the structures now have actually changed.
Right.
But for us, when we were doing it, it was literally 9 months of intensive learning. After that intensive learning, so how it works is, you know, in the morning, like I said, that time I'm not really sure how it works now, but you would go to work in the morning.
Right.
You report for work at like 7 o'clock or 7:30. You knock off at lunchtime. You're in class at 2 o'clock, and you're in class until like 5:30. Okay. After that, you have to go home, study, and do what? And you're still expected to go to work the next day.
Right.
And you do that for a couple of months, and then you write your medias. When we were writing our medias, we wrote 2 exams every day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. We barely slept.
Right.
Unless you're me, who loves sleep, so you make time for sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
You make time for sleep, but a lot of us barely slept. Some of us didn't even sleep in our homes. We
Right.
would find a friend who lives close to the school so that we're not stuck in traffic.
Right.
You want to use every opportunity you have to read, to study, and to prepare.
Yeah.
And then we have our final exams where we write now one exam every single day, no break in between.
Wow.
There's like a weekend. Actually, there's 2 weekends because there were 11 subjects.
Yeah.
So there's like those subjects you write after a weekend. Of course, you perform better because you
Right.
have more rest, you have more time. But it's intense. And most of the people that go there, they're young people.
Right.
I don't think it takes a lot to exercise your mind and to apply yourself to that level of intensity.
Right.
And sometimes we're unprepared when we go. There isn't enough that prepares us for that experience, that 9 months that we went through.
Right.
The only thing we all have is a drive that I want to do this, I want to achieve this. That's the only thing that gets us through that intense period. But looking back now, having gone through that intensity, I would definitely approach things a different way. I would use every opportunity to study.
Right.
Not because I wouldn't have time to do anything else, but if there's something I'm not understanding, I would make sure early on I take the time to understand it.
Right.
Never let anything you don't know, never let time pass, and then things that you don't know are building up.
Right.
Always understand every topic, every principle the first time you hear it. If you don't, you're now going to be wasting time when it's time for you to study.
Right.
Learning things from scratch when you should have been learning them the first time round.
Right.
And I wish that the learnings that people do in the law firms were a little bit more structured towards what people are learning at Ziali.
Right.
Because when we were working, there were some things we would learn, like about conveyancing and how it works, registering properties, but it wasn't very practical.
Right.
It wasn't. So what I've realized is the practice in itself is okay, but when we went to Ziali, the stuff that we were learning, it was something else.
Yeah.
So you're trying to marry what you're really doing in practice,
So
which
there's
is
a
something
disconnect.
which is something that you will be doing when you get that job.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to learn, because now maybe the lecturer is gone on a tangent and is teaching you absolutely something different. And remember, my opinion is that lecturers in Zambia teach you to pass exams. They don't teach you for practice.
Yeah.
Which is there are very few lecturers who've understood that I'm preparing these people for practice.
Right.
And that's what makes, I think that's what makes Ziali hard. But it's doable. You can do it. You really have to be consumed by what you're studying.
So
you have to be
why
consumed.
is that perception there?
Because a lot of people fail. A lot of people fail.
Why do a lot of people fail?
It's like I said, it's not easy. It's an intense time, and not everyone mentally puts in what they need to for them to make it. And sometimes you remember that even if you fail the first time, you have an opportunity to go back. Why do people make it the second time?
How many times?
3 times.
3 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
After the third time, you get banned. You have to make it on the third try, or
I'm told you
And
get
you have
banned
like a
for
5-year
how many years?
for 5 years.
Wow. That's intense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've
interesting.
heard that there are exceptions where, let's say you remained with one subject, and then you ask for an exemption, like, let me just try again, instead of going through the ban.
Yeah.
But so it's tough.
Interesting. So sounds like a very, very demanding profession to be in. So my question is, what are some of the most challenging aspects of being a lawyer?
I think, like I said, the first thing is Ziali is probably only now, and would need someone who's there now to tell us if it's changed. But for me, my experience was that it didn't prepare me for practice.
Right.
What prepared me for practice was the job I had in the morning before I went to Ziali. Ziali in itself, the stuff we were learning, very few things were practical.
Right.
The procedure side of things, because you do civil procedure and criminal procedure, that was fantastic. They tell you exactly what to do from start to finish. Your client gets arrested, how to get bail, what can you get bail for, what's the procedure, what are you relying on, what documentation are you filing for that. So that was very, very practical. The procedure itself, I loved it. But the other courses, they didn't feel as practical. They didn't prepare me to be a lawyer. So one of the biggest challenges I noticed is that, you see, you learn on the job.
Right.
And there are few lawyers who become brilliant just because they've taken the time to learn on the job and learn quickly. And then there are also a few they've used the things they've learned to become successful.
Right.
Because remember, being a lawyer is not just your boss bringing you clients. Growth also means that you're now bringing your own clients and
Right.
bringing your
Right.
own people. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges, understanding that you are just passing the bar.
Right.
You are yet to become a lawyer
Right.
in
Right.
real life, in practice. And then you are yet to exercise your mind to the type of lawyer you actually want to be.
Right.
Then there's also the issue of wages. Wages are a problem. Most lawyers are, like, when you're starting out, you're not paid very well.
Right.
And
Really, I've been meant to think lawyers cash in real big.
what kind of lawyers do you know?
Yeah.
What kind of lawyers do you
Yeah.
know? Look, there are levels to these things.
Right.
I think lawyers that have been in practice, that have proven themselves and have built their careers on success, money is good.
Right.
Money is very good. But when you're starting out, you don't make that kind of money.
Yeah.
And I think it's that perception that has probably landed some of our young lawyers in trouble.
Right.
That's when you hear, no, someone has been disbarred,
Yeah.
someone chewed client money.
Right.
Just because maybe that's the first time they're being exposed to that amount of money.
Right.
So yeah, wages are a really big thing. It's a challenge because when you pass Ziali, you automatically thinks, I deserve this.
Right.
I have earned it.
Yeah.
But it takes time to earn a certain level of money being a lawyer,
Right.
especially in private practice. In corporate, it's very different. You know, salaries are all about policies.
Yeah.
They're all about what the organization has
Right.
set in terms for that grade, and there's all these incentives that corporate has that are
Right.
not there in
Private
practice.
practice,
But you
yeah.
see, in private practice, they also have an advantage because they have what they call a commission.
Right.
You get a commission on the files that you work on. You get a commission on the clients that you bring in.
Right.
And so sometimes that can be a lot of money. Sometimes it's not.
Right.
But it's not consistent. It's not like corporate.
Right.
But when you're starting out, it takes time for you to figure out how you can then get your own clients, get your
Right.
own files, get that commission and bring value to the firm. It's not always straightforward. But once you've established yourself, trust me, the money is good.
Right.
The opportunities are also great. And I think what people don't understand about being a lawyer is that it gives you such a unique opportunity to be in rooms where
Right.
an
rooms
ordinary
of
person
influence,
would, like,
yeah.
a nurse is a valuable, being a nurse is a valuable career, but
Right.
it's not going to get you in those rooms,
Yeah.
But being a lawyer, you get to be part of conversations. You
Right.
get to be in rooms where policies are being made. But that also takes time, building your career, investing in it, doing
Right.
further courses.
Yeah.
So I do think, like I said, passing the bar is just at the bottom of the barrel.
Right.
That's just the first thing you have to do.
Yeah.
You then have to figure out if you're going to specialize. Am I going to go into arbitration? Am I going to... Okay, most people do legal drafting.
Right.
There's all these other courses that you have to do on top. Like for some of us who specialized in regulatory compliance,
Right.
you have to think, what can I do related to compliance that will give me an edge over my peers?
Right.
Because, like, I'll give you an example. Compliance is only now when it's becoming like, oh, it's the in thing.
Right.
Every company is investing in compliance people. So now there's an opportunity, there's a career for people.
Right.
So now lawyers are considering it. But when we were starting out, it wasn't. So now you have to think, okay, what else can I do? I have the experience, but what else can I do to
Right.
separate myself? So I think there's a lot of challenges, but there's also plenty of opportunities. What you need to succeed is patience.
Right.
Patience, and be very deliberate about what you're doing to grow in your career.
Interesting. Very fascinating. On the flip side of that, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of being a lawyer?
I think when you get to a certain level, money.
Okay.
The money is good. Okay, so I remember one time, some 2 years ago, I was at a meeting with some senior lawyers, like 2 senior lawyers, and no, 3 actually, and then the others were just like board members for this organization. And I remember being on the table. One of them was like, maybe 25 years, almost 30 years at the bar. The other one was like 18, you know.
Right.
And so one of the lawyers made a joke that, I'll be making 20 years at the bar, asking the most senior lawyer, I'll be
Right.
making 20 years at the bar. So can you confirm if I get to 30 years, that's where the money is?
Right.
Because the money is not here. And he's like, I can confirm that it's
Right.
at 30. It's
Right.
at 30. So it's really funny. But I think definitely the money is a huge reward.
Right.
But it's also the impact that you're having. You get to be part of the most important conversations.
Right.
And there's no laws that are passed in this country that don't go through the minds of lawyers.
Right.
I think that's such a great privilege. You are influencing policy. You are even like those who do litigation.
Right.
Some of the way they present their arguments, those things shape regulation. They shape the decisions that are made by the judges, and
Right.
what the government comes with, what the government comes up with
Right.
in terms of how certain things should be handled. So it's such a great privilege to be in that kind of a profession.
Right.
Yeah, I think the money is good, but it's definitely not the most important.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. That's very nice. And I know that ethics play a very important role in this profession. And you earlier spoke about, especially the younger guys coming up, how they're easily entangled in issues of integrity. Um, how important is the ethical aspect for this profession?
It's the cornerstone. It's the cornerstone of the profession itself.
Right.
There's a course that we do at CLE called ethics.
Right.
So I think the fact that they've created a specific course to teach you
Right.
your duties as a lawyer, your obligation to the court, what the court and who the court is, what your role in that is.
Right.
They even teach us accounts. It's such a huge part, and they teach us accounts so we can know how to deal with money, because money anyway, the Bible says the love of money
Right.
is the root of evil, right? And so I think when they teach us about ethics and all these other things that they teach us in preparation for this career,
Right.
it's not a waste of time. You can't have a good career without integrity.
Right.
You can't have a good law career without integrity. You have to be a person of your word. And the good thing about having integrity is that it brings back people.
Right.
Because we are not allowed to advertise as a profession. So if you deal with your matters with the utmost professionalism, those things speak for themselves.
Right.
So the people that you represent or your clients, they get to recommend you.
Right.
That's where your business comes from.
Yeah.
So integrity is a huge part of our work. And sometimes it takes starting from the bottom and not just going straight to the top, because you haven't taken the time to build your character and to understand, to know how to deal with certain opportunities when they come around. Because you may not have the character or the ethical know-how on how to handle certain things. And you may come across clients that will offer you so much money.
Right.
So much money to do illegal things. You understand? But look at how much investment you've made in your career.
Right, for yourself.
Would you throw that away for
definitely
money?
Not.
Money that you can work for and make
Right.
in a couple of years? No. But again, it takes time to build that ethical muscle.
Right.
And that's why some senior lawyers encourage young people, like, it's okay to start at the bottom.
Right.
It's okay to start at the bottom in your career, because it is building your character.
Right.
But when people try to make it too fast, that's when they crash.
Right.
That's when you find someone in a scandal because they used up money. And it's not limited to the inexperienced lawyers.
Right.
Even experienced lawyers find themselves in situations like that. And that's why integrity is a huge, huge thing. But even money management is a huge part of your ethics. Because you see, if you're not managing your personal money well, that's when now you get the temptation to go into clients' money, and that gets you in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a very controversial question. Are lawyers liars? You're just from speaking about ethics and how it's held at the very highest of esteems. And yet we hear this phrase being thrown around very loosely. Are lawyers liars?
I wouldn't. It wouldn't be right for me to sit here and say lawyers are liars. That would be saying that I am a liar and I am
Right,
not.
right,
Um, we are in a profession where if your client has done something,
right.
it is my duty. It's my duty,
Mm-hmm.
if I've been engaged, to make sure that my client gets off.
Right,
But we also have rules and regulation within which to operate in.
mm-hmm.
That allows us to remain, to keep our integrity.
Right,
There's so many, you don't understand how many rules and guidelines there are on how to act as a lawyer.
right.
Right from how you dress,
Mm-hmm.
right from how you address senior counsel, how you address the judge. There's so many rules and you
Why
do
is it
not
so rigid?
understand.
Why is it so rigid?
I'm just saying that to make a point that
Right.
for someone to go off then
Mm,
and do the opposite,
right.
it's a personal character issue.
Mm,
It's not because lawyers are liars.
right.
Lawyers are human beings. There's no difference between someone who's a lawyer and a non-lawyer. They're human beings.
Right.
The only difference that then comes up is the way they conduct themselves in the profession.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, there are so many rules and guidelines that we have to operate
Right.
within.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you're representing your client, even when you find that maybe your client, they've done what,
Right.
you still have to, because you remember that our licenses also depend on our keeping our integrity.
Right.
Literally. So you can't go beyond the borders of those rules.
Mm,
So I would never answer that and say lawyers are liars.
Right.
They have a duty to represent their client.
right.
As long as it's within the confines of the law. That's not lying.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's not lying.
And very smart. Okay. So pretty much, there is this portrayal of what lawyers represent, in series and TV shows that we watch. I'd like for you to just speak into some of the misconceptions that people have about the profession.
Yeah, don't believe the shows. It's a lie.
Well, I mean, they're just depicting
It's
what
a lie.
what it is,
No, that's not what it is. Someone should do a show about law in Zambia.
right?
That would be a real show.
Yeah.
You cannot watch Suits and think this is how my practice
That
is
it
going
is.
to be. I'm going
Yeah.
to have a corner office, glass windows.
Right.
I just go in there and I argue with the judge for 2 minutes and I win the case.
Yeah.
Psh, forget.
It doesn't happen that
No.
way. Yeah.
None of the shows you watch are realistic. And so there are certain shows I love. Suits, The Good Wife, Boston Legal.
So what are they depicting then?
So you might not remember that practice is different.
Right.
I'm sad to say, we were colonized by the British.
Right.
So our legal system is based off the British legal system.
Right.
And theirs is very traditional. That's why we have all the rules we have. We wear the wigs and
Right.
we get robbed just like they do. Whereas in America, they have sort of moved away from that.
Right.
And even though they have moved away from those formalities, even their structures is still, it's not as fun as the TV makes it look.
Right.
Because when you talk to a real lawyer and say it's not like that, you can't just go and talk to the judge like that. There has to be some decorum.
Right.
There has to, like I said, all these rules, they still apply, even though maybe they're not as rigid as ours. They're not expected to wear a wig like we are. And so don't follow the TV. Be inspired. I
Yeah.
think enjoy the show, but let it end there.
Right.
Because it's not a real depiction of what law practice is.
Right.
You can be passionate, but there's no way. There. I can't remember. Oh, there's the Good Wife. I mentioned the Good Wife.
Right,
There's an
right.
episode where Alicia is challenging the judge because the judge is refusing her to cross-examine,
Right.
right? And so the judge is threatening her, saying, "If you continue, I will hold you in contempt." And then she says, "Then hold me in contempt, and I
Yeah.
will refer this to the judicial review and what."
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Nah, never, never,
Never
yeah,
happening in real
forget,
life.
never,
Nah.
ever." Yeah, because she's like, I will recommend this
Yeah.
for to the judicial committee and review and
Right.
what, and I just know you can't dare. They hold you in contempt. Just pay the
Yeah.
fees
Yeah.
and chill out.
Yeah.
So it's not a realistic depiction of practice.
Yeah.
But they're good shows. We enjoy them.
Yeah.
And especially us who know the law,
Right.
we enjoy them more
Yeah.
than people who don't. Yeah.
It's like you're saying, okay, you, I cannot do that, but how are they doing that? Like I've always just found that, like the analogy that you just gave, like in real life, can that really happen? Nah.
No, of course you have some moments. You see, the difference is that I think here lawyers wouldn't answer back.
Yeah.
The judge can try,
Yeah.
but the lawyer, if you want to be okay, you want your career to be long and
Yeah.
successful, you just wouldn't try.
Yeah.
You wouldn't try. It would just be yes, my lady, yes, my lord, and you move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking into the trends in the profession, are there any emerging trends that you've noted, particularly those that are exciting to you or concerning to you, currently obtaining
Regarding
the profession
the
itself?
profession,
Yeah,
I think what's exciting is that there's now the broader opportunities.
right.
Like even with the emergence of AI, there's different laws
Right.
that people can study.
Yes,
There's
yes.
different laws. I promise you, and I don't want to give anyone ideas, but I promise you very soon you'll hear a case where someone used ChatGPT and did something because ChatGPT said, you know what I
Definitely
mean?
coming.
So
It's definitely
then now
coming.
you have to find rules and regulations that can speak to those issues. Now,
Right.
can you imagine being in a position where you can create those? I think as a country, we definitely need to take more initiative in
Right.
preparing and having those regulations, and then just evolving as the technology also evolves. Because there's certain aspects of the law that don't change.
Right.
Like I'll give you an example: trademarks, patents,
Right.
those things. In fact, I think here it's not as stringent, but in European law, big deal. IT law, IP law,
Right.
big deal. But here we haven't invested as much in those. But I also understand that where the country is and where the other countries are,
Right.
it's not the
Right.
same.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with the same economic or business environments. But I think we just still need to be very proactive. And even like the young people that are studying now, don't limit yourself to just studying law.
Right.
You can study the law, but give yourself an edge. Do an IT course. Do a course, an added certificate or a
Right,
diploma
right.
that just broadens your opportunities. Because remember, I said you don't have to go into litigation. That's
Right.
not the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
There's so many other things you can do. There's human rights. There's
Right.
so many things you can do, but you just have to expose yourself to as much learning as you can early on, so that you are equipped enough and informed enough to make those decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. I have a question regarding what lawyers aspire to ascend to. You know how it is with every profession. You start from the bottom and you start building your career, and you've got in your mind that you want to ascend to a certain level. So in the legal profession, what are those levels that lawyers aspire to?
I think they're different. We already have certain stages and levels. So like when you get called, you wait 3 years, then at 3 years you can become a commissioner for oaths, and that
Right.
doesn't seem like a big deal,
Right.
but it's still an achievement. And you also become an advocate of the Supreme Court.
Right.
Not all the lawyers get to go to Supreme Court until you hit that 3 years.
Right.
So when you first get called, you're just going to the highest court you can go to is a high court. And when you hit that 3 years, you're now excited.
Right.
You can go to the Supreme Court. But then there's certain prestigious, I don't want to call them accolades, but you can become state counsel for the
Right.
senior lawyers. They look forward to that
Yeah.
because it gives you, it makes you look like you've achieved something with your career.
Right.
You know, you've done some notable work that should be widely recognized. And there's also becoming judges. I think those are some of the things that definitely lawyers look forward to. But I think more than that, we should be looking to actually get on the international stage and not just in Zambia.
Right.
There has to be a way to educate us as a profession and even the young people that are coming behind us on what other opportunities are there beyond our borders, right?
Right.
What other opportunities and milestones can we achieve as lawyers
Right.
beyond what we see is possible in this country? So beyond becoming a judge, what else can I do? If I don't want to become a judge, what opportunity is there for me?
Right.
Yeah.
Very insightful. Thank you so much for sharing. So before we wrap up, I'd like to find out from you if there are any specific areas that I may not have highlighted that you'd like to talk about, speaking into the legal profession in terms of advice you'd like to give somebody who's getting into the profession, or just speaking about the profession in general. It could be about your career, it could be about the general practice itself. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
I think I would say for those that are thinking of going into profession or in the profession or they are already doing a law degree, build your confidence. Your confidence is most likely going to come from you having knowledge. So be smart, be well read, have knowledge. When you go into rooms and spaces, prepare to be in those rooms.
Right.
Prepare to have those conversations. I think that as a profession and as the type of people that lawyers are, they will always try to intimidate you. They will always try to make you think they are better than you, as nice as the nicest people.
Right.
But they'll still, try to do that. You have to build yourself up personally as an individual by having that knowledge, but even beyond that, having the understanding of who you are. Do not be intimidated by anyone or anything. I think your responsibility is to have integrity and speak to people with respect, but it's important for you to have unquestionable confidence in yourself.
Right.
Because sometimes I think some lawyers tend not to achieve what is possible for them just because they lose that confidence in
Right.
themselves.
Right.
It's like you think a certain type of success is reserved for certain people, and it's not. You should always believe every success that is possible to a lawyer is equally possible for
Right.
you.
Right.
You can work for it. You can invest in yourself to give yourself as much of a chance to get there. But I think the key thing is have that confidence in
Right.
yourself.
Right.
You went to law school just like they did. You've probably done all these other courses just like they did.
Right.
So keep believing in yourself and have confidence. I don't mean arrogance.
Right.
I
There's a
just mean,
difference.
yes,
Yeah.
I just mean well-informed confidence so that as you're making decisions about your career, you are well-informed.
Right.
You're well-informed. When you get into a place, you're not intimidated by who's there. You're not also intimidating other people.
Right.
You're going there to add value and to teach those that are coming behind you.
Right.
And even those that have gone before you. You really have to have confidence in yourself and don't give up even when it gets hard. It
Right.
will get hard. It will get hard like no man's business. But don't give up.
Yeah.
Always have the end in mind, whatever you're working towards. But confidence and self-belief is very important.
Right.
And I think that it's one of those unspoken of qualities that most lawyers have.
Right.
But I know that it's something I have to say so that people can be conscious of how they're showing up, because most lawyers, when they go to court, they always think they're going to win or they have a
Right,
reason. You
right.
understand? That comes from somewhere. It's beyond the knowledge, they believe it.
Right.
So believe in yourself. Believe in yourself.
Yeah, very deep. Mutumwa, thank you very much for coming through to the Talent Plug podcast. Very inspirational. I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers have gotten quite a number of nuggets from what you've had to share with us. Um, this has been the Talent Plug podcast. Thank you so much for joining us and stay inspired.